Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Playeasy Warmup, the podcast where we dive into the stories, people, and places shaping the future of sports tourism and events. I'm your host, Kerri Shields. Today, I'm joined by Nick Povalitis, the founder of Plus7 Company, a content and event marketing agency that's driving impact through brand building, public relations, tourism marketing, and major events. Nick has nearly 2 decades of experience across college athletics, the private sector, and destination marketing, including award-winning work at the Rockford area CVB and partnerships that have elevated both communities and global platforms. In this conversation, we dive into his work with the World Breaking Classic, an international event that's become a cultural force with a massive digital following, and explore what he looks for in host destinations, how he's leveraging technology and storytelling, and the lessons he's carrying forward as a leader in the space. This was truly one of my favorite conversations I've had on the podcast. With Nick's diverse background, his passion for growing events, the impact of community and the importance of relationships to him, and just his overall insight on the sporting event and tourism industry really shine through. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
Nothing brings people together like sports, and no place brings people together like the beach, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There, you'll find first-class facilities and an experienced planning team that will make sure your sporting or esports event goes off without a hitch. And when the games end, the real play begins. With 60 miles of endless activities and entertainment, it's a guaranteed win for all ages. That's why you can't beat the beach. Start planning at myrtlebeachsports.com.
Nick, welcome to the Playeasy Warmup podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kerri. It's obviously great to be here and looking forward to chatting about World Breaking Classic and maybe some other things as well.
Yeah, yes, so am I. And so you've had such a diverse career across universities, the private sector, CVBs, and now as a founder of Plus7 Company. Can you walk us through your journey and what ultimately inspired you to start your own company?
Yeah, so my journey goes back quite a bit, of course. In terms of sports events and really PR and storytelling, I think that really started when I was in college, way back in 1998 through 2002. At the University of Illinois in Champaign, and I got introduced to the student newspaper when I was a student there. And I wrote for the newspaper, the Daily Illini, for about 2 years. Got to know some of the athletic teams and programs as I covered Big Ten football and Illini basketball, things like that. And after about 2 years of writing for the paper, got a pretty good rapport, started with the athletic department at Illinois, and spent my senior year not being paid, but volunteering to be essentially the men's tennis sports information director. So they had a full-time person assigned to that role. But as a student who's eager to learn, I was assigned home match responsibilities for the Illini men's tennis team. And I didn't know it at the time, but the coach was a guy named Craig Tiley. And when you think of powerhouse college tennis programs, you don't think of Illinois. You think of maybe Stanford or somewhere down south. But Illinois at that time was building an amazing program because of what Craig was doing, bringing in some of the best players, and they ended up winning the national championship the year after I was graduated from Illinois. So 2003, they won the team title, the indoor title, men's singles, and then the doubles title. So they swept all the national championships. And just a few short years later, Craig would then go on to become the director of Tennis Australia. So he since then has served as essentially the tournament director for the Australian Open. He oversees tennis in the continent of Australia. So at that time in my career, in my life, I got exposed to a human being like that I didn't know what it meant at the time, but you kind of pick up on some nuanced approaches of some of the coaches and student athletes. And as you progress throughout your career, it becomes pretty evident that you were around some pretty cool people and amazing people. And again, had no idea he would become who he is. And I haven't even talked to him for 20 years since I was really a student, but I've of course followed his story, and that really shaped foundationally my interest in sports PR, sports events, saying yes to things that people would otherwise maybe be leery of saying yes to. So when you start a company like I've done the last 4 years or so, it's a leap, right? So you don't know all the steps between point A to point B, but you have the guts and maybe the vision to say yes, knowing that you can figure it out. So I think that was ingrained in me at a pretty young age. And after my time in Illinois, I interned at Northwestern for a year, again in sports information at Northwestern, and that was an amazing experience. My boss at that time Had previously worked at Washington University in St. Louis for 14 years as a head SID. Well, coming out of my internship at Northwestern in 2003, a full-time position opened up at WashU, and he kind of made that introduction. And lo and behold, I got the gig at WashU, where I was for about 4 years. So I've just been around some amazing places and people, and I could go on and on about just that short time frame between 2000 time frame all the way till maybe 2007 at WashU when I wrapped up my time there. But really, that first full-time position to be at a place like WashU where they win multiple national championships, Division III program, but they're in a market like St. Louis. And the conference that their teams get to travel with is the University Athletic Association. So they go to Chicago, they go to New York, they go to Boston, they go to Atlanta just for conference play. And then they win national championships on top of that. And then a place like Washington University hosts the Olympic torch relay in 2004. They've hosted 5 presidential debates since the 1980s and 1990s. So again, to be exposed to all that talent and vision and willingness to say yes, and then figure out the steps to get from point A to point B really shaped my career, and it's something I've taken with me.
Yeah, I love that. And we actually have similar backgrounds. My first job in sports was I was a marketing intern for the Boston College Athletic Department when I was playing basketball, but it was an unpaid internship, but it exposed me to the totally different side of the business, which was the game day operations and marketing of our events. And um, also, one of my favorite people from college is my SID at Boston College. So I have a great appreciation for what that job entails, and just a cool entryway into your sports experience. And so, with starting Plus7 Company, what gap did you see in the market in building this organization?
Well, again, I think that traces back to my earlier career, even beyond my time at WashU. So from there, moved back home. Again, it's about 17 years since we moved back home to Rockford, Illinois. And in 2012, I ended up joining Go Rockford, the tourism agency here, to help build out the sports program. And my whole philosophy is really centered on identifying gaps and trying to fill them. So Rockford has long been a destination known for soccer, baseball, softball, sports like that, which is great, and it still is. My whole thing, though, is how do we get Quidditch here? How do we get USA Wrestling National Championships, USA Ultimate Nationals, Collegiate National Championships? How do we develop partnerships with professional athletes that can help us tell our story better as a community? So those are really areas that I leaned into, and that, again, that's carried over. So I got to a point in 2021 where I decided to make that leap. And after a lengthy career and a lot of success at Go Rockford and WashU and St. Louis and places like that, you've kind of accumulated a network of people, and with those people comes a lot of ideas. And having lived in St. Louis and Chicago, in addition to my hometown of Rockford, you see how things can be different, right? And what may work in St. Louis may not always be appropriate for Rockford, but there are some things that we can extrapolate from those experiences and implement here in town. So I guess a more recent example, um, outdoor boxing. And I know this is not a travel event per se, but outdoor boxing is not a novel idea, really. In Rockford, it did not exist. And that was an idea that I'd been fleshing out for the better part of 8 or 10 years, and aligned with the VP of Illinois USA Boxing about 4 years ago now, pretty much just after I left Go Rockford to launch this venture. And lo and behold, we're 4+ years into a really successful partnership where we have outdoor boxing in Rockford, and thousands of people come downtown to see USA Boxing amateurs and police fire bouts. And we've also raised more than $20,000 locally for the local nonprofit boxing club. So I've always kind of had that knack and that thirst and vision for, again, identifying a gap. And if it's not being filled by somebody, then somebody's got to take responsibility to do it. And I think I've been that person to do just that.
And I mentioned I listened to a few podcasts you were on earlier during your time at Go Rockford, and it was something you spoke about was the importance of growing those events locally. I
Yep.
know obviously we're in sports tourism and events, and so a lot of destinations are going after those traveling events. Why do you think it was important to have that local growth first?
I think the inside out approach when it comes to sports events and tourism is always the way to go. You can't host USA Ultimate Nationals or USA Wrestling Nationals without having a great relationship with an LOC, or without having the capacity to build a solid local organizing committee. So you've got to know who those people are within your community. And if you don't know who those people are, then you can't even get off the ground with going for a national championship. And you may get lucky once in a while, you may get awarded one. But in terms of bringing it back and creating a successful experience that the visitors all enjoy, that the administrative staff from a USA Wrestling enjoys being a part of a program in Rockford. You really need to have a great foundation. And it all starts with the assets your community has. So you need to identify and be realistic, right? We're in the Midwest, so we cannot host outdoor events pretty much November through February, March. And we know that. We've got great sports complexes. We've got some, more recently, some professional athletes and entertainers that have come out of the area that have really been coming back home to want to give back. So how do you lean into what you've got from a storytelling perspective that's endemic to who you are? And then how do you match that up with some of the national and even international event opportunities that are out there? Because to a certain scale, you can be a tier one market, Chicago, New York, and you can in Vegas, and you can host anything. Well, to a certain scale, we can do the same in Rockford. So we may not host Super Bowl or the Final Four. We're good with that. But there's opportunities that may be connected to the NBA because of Fred VanVleet, who's from Rockford. There may be opportunities connected to a Sundance Film Festival type opportunity if you just approach it and connect it back to the local scene, which is what another example of something that we've had success doing. So it all starts with local, and that's really building a foundation, and everything else can be much easier from there.
I love it. And I think that was something we were both at the NCAA championship bid symposium this week. And that is a theme coming out of the NCAA, is that there's a championship for every city. And so how do you utilize those assets? And so something that you've really spent a lot of time on is utilizing some of the professional athletes within specifically Rockford to bring and enhance some of those events. Could you speak on just the importance of partnering with those athletes and just the overall storytelling for the city?
Well, first and foremost, I like what gets lost a lot, and I think Ryan was a kicker, right, for
Yes.
an NFL kicker. So what gets lost in that whole sports and entertainment or famous people in general, right, is that they're people first. So I think if you can approach these individuals, and essentially they're also brands, but so that there's a different kind of weight that's carried with the outreach when you're trying to establish a relationship. But if you approach them as people first and identify ways that you can bring value to them without expecting much of a return from the onset, like that's how I've always approached it, and it's been received very well. So for the last 8-9 years, I've developed good rapport with Fred, of course, from who now plays with the Houston Rockets, and that's carried over from my time at Go Rockford even in the present day with helping him produce some of his summer camp programs, and that ultimately it just reinforces the relationships we have back home within the sports community, and it amplifies sports entertainment back in Rockford when he continues to decide to come back home, give back to programs, engage with us. He was just our featured guest for our nonprofit gala dinner called Diamonds this year, and it was terrific. We raised a lot of money for his foundation. It helped us raise money for scholarships and helped us launch a regional Hall of Fame. So it's essentially about creating a win-win, but you have to go into it not expecting anything in return, because ultimately the entertainers and athletes, they've got a lot of brand value, and they're constantly getting pulled and asked for favors and questions. Well, you can't approach it that way at all. And again, I've had success. One of my board members with our nonprofit is Nicole Briscoe from ESPN Sports Center, and she's a Roscoe native, so just north of Rockford, and she's become an amazing friend. And again, that's because of approaching it the right way and presenting programs and opportunities alongside with her that she would maybe lean into, and you got to take your time with it. And the same could be said with build rapport with the NCAA or USA Ultimate. It's all about doing it the right way and not expecting things in return from the onset, knowing that your hard work and your good quality work will pay off down the road.
And isn't it just all about relationships and doing things the right way? And it's clear that
Yeah.
you have a great passion for that. And so could we get
Yep.
into more about what is Plus7 Company and what do you offer as an organization?
Yes, Plus7 Company is a boutique sports and entertainment agency, and we've really leaned into events, right? So um, a big reason why we're on the call today is because of my work with World Breaking Classic. So it's Plus7's kind of divided into the events division, events and properties essentially, and then services. And while we've got a few clients on the services side connected to sports and entertainment, the events takes up a significant amount of time. To touch on the services side on some of the client work, yes, we've aligned with a couple destinations to do some tourism, sports marketing consulting. I had worked with Cimarron Global Solutions for quite some time, building out their publications, and Jennifer Stoll and her team are fantastic to work with. And locally back home, which doesn't necessarily connect with tourism right now, but it will, we're building a museum dedicated to women's baseball. I don't know if all the viewers and listeners will know Rockford's baseball story is really, really tied to women's baseball because of more mainstream, the movie A League of Their Own and the Rockford Peaches, that narrative. So some of that still, of course, is prevalent in this community. So the International Women's Baseball Center is a client of mine now. We're fundraising to build the world's only museum campus dedicated to women's baseball anywhere in the world, right here in Rockford, across the street from Buyer Stadium. So we're having a lot of success in doing so. And as part of that organization's programs, they do, of course, free clinics and MLB pitch, hit, and run clinics. They've sponsored Baseball for All Youth Nationals that have been in Rockford 3 times previously from 2017 and 19. That's a travel tournament. But more recently, IWBC, in partnership with the City of Rockford, Go Rockford, Rockford University, the Park District, we bid on the Women's Baseball World Cup out of Rockford. And we've won the rights, the 2026 group stage next summer. That event's coming to the United States for only the second time ever, coming to Rockford, Illinois, which is essentially the home of women's baseball. So we couldn't be more excited about how that's taken shape. So, but yeah, I mean, +7, it's all things sports and entertainment, and we're really, to be honest, we're still trying to carve out some of what that means succinctly. But there's just so many passion projects we're involved with, like a World Breaking Classic, that it's really kind of helped define who we've become. And yeah, just really excited about where we're at right now, and again about what World Breaking Classic looks like moving forward too.
And my ears just lit up when you said A League of Their Own. It's my
Yep.
childhood favorite movie. So
Yeah.
that's awesome to hear that the legacy of that will continue to grow. So yeah, you mentioned the World Breaking Classic. It's such a unique project you've been
It is.
involved with. For listeners who might not know, can you explain what it is and why it's become such a cultural force?
Yeah, World Breaking Classic as an organization has been around since 2008. It's essentially the world's largest 2 versus 2 breaking championship and community that's out there. They're based in Eindhoven, Netherlands. That's where the World Final's been held for the better part of the last 15 years, 10, 15 years. And they also license qualifying events to countries around the world. And there's typically 6 or 8 World Breaking Classic qualifiers that qualify into the 2 versus 2 World Final in the Netherlands. And I've luckily been a part of that program, and that stemmed from, again, just looking at gaps and making in cold calling World Breaking Classic after discovering them on Instagram about 5 or 6 years
Oh,
ago. And they granted me the rights in 2021 to produce the U.S. program, and we've since produced 2 qualifiers in 2022 and 2024. Great success, but the community itself. So if you're a fan of hip hop, like that's really where, for me, it starts. And
yeah.
I consider myself a guest in the space. I mean, that's obvious. I'm not a b-boy. I've never pretended to be. And I love the content. I love what World Breaking Classic represented online. And having gone through quite a few calls and meeting the founders, and now with 2 events under my belt, it's pretty clear to me that the community, that the breaking community and the breaking scene is a fun place to be. Not only does it produce amazing content, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are also b-boys that, from a brand awareness perspective, can tie some things together and really help amplify communities as part of hosting these events. But really, it's about a niche community having such a strong, steadfast following. And again, me being a guest in the space, approaching it the correct way. So from a production standpoint, we know we've got to hit a certain level of quality, right? So that people will want to come out to a Tulsa, Oklahoma to compete for the rights to make the world final. So there's a production component that's needs to be held to a high standard, but then you can't lose sight of what the actual community and culture is. And if you've been to a breaking event, it's very tight knit. It's typically in smaller dance or live music venues, and the vibe is really up close and intimate and personal. And like you can't lose that aesthetic as part of a higher production value. So it's a balancing act. But again, the community is terrific, and there's so much potential from a brand awareness perspective for destinations to bring something like this in.
And I have to say, we've had a lot of niche sports on this podcast, and this would probably
Yep.
be by far my worst sport. So I would also be a happy spectator. And it's clear just from watching some of the events over the past couple of days in preparation for this call, and just seeing how vast their social media following is. It's one of the standout aspects of the World Breaking Classic. And so, from your perspective, how valuable is that reach, not just for the event itself, but for the growth of breaking overall?
Super valuable. I think one awesome example that I wasn't even aware of. So one of our judges in Tulsa was B-Boy Moy, and he's from Houston, Texas. As an example of breaking communities reach, and even just one person's impact on the culture, the artistic form, the sport, like whatever you want to call breaking. Um, he about 25 years ago just started wearing a bunch of Monster Energy gear around, way before Monster invested into breaking. Well, his following essentially, I don't know if it convinced Monster to invest in it, but his following and his willingness to keep repping Monster branded hats and shirts at breaking events around the world, because at that time he was traveling the world to compete. Monster came on board as like an official sponsor because of B-Boy Moy, and essentially created like the Monster Breaking Crew. So that's one example. Red Bull, of course, is another huge brand that's tapped into it, but um, World Breaking Classic, of course, has built a great following, but really it starts with individuals who care deeply about the community, who care deeply about breaking, and who are endemic and really tied to it. That's where it all starts, and then everything else can kind of grow from there. Um, yeah, I mean, it's the content, of course, can live on, and you've seen some of the clips, and whether it's World Breaking Classic or Red Bull, a lot of that stuff lives on YouTube, and it's gotten amazing traction and views. But I really just want to point back to like those that really connected those dots 20, 30, even 40 years ago that really set this up. And of course, it was part of the Olympic Games in Paris last summer, and for varying reasons, got some interesting feedback. And the beautiful thing about it is a lot of the brands that were there before the Olympic Games are still there. Red Bull's there, Monster's there, World Breaking Classic is there. Um, Pro Breaking Tour is doing a terrific job. So the community is still thriving, and obviously been able to maybe capitalize on some of the exposure that was there from the Olympics. But it was never essentially about the Olympics. It was always about the culture of the community, and the Olympics were kind of part of that story. And now, thankfully, that story has continued to live on. I think the community is thriving, quite honestly.
And you've been on the destination side of things, so you know the heads and beds is usually how historically we track just the overall success of an event. But there's a big trend in just the social media reach and influence. Like, why do you think that having that kind of social reach influences things like sponsorship, fan
Yeah.
engagement, and even where events are hosted?
The beautiful thing about World Breaking Classic, like I know how tourism bureaus and sports commissions sometimes are funded. It's based on heads and beds. So what you hear and what you see a lot is attendance of trade shows and picking up leads and trying to justify ROI. And I get that it is very important. I'm not saying it's not important. The beautiful thing about World Breaking Classic in this community is it's very, very marketing driven. So brands get behind it for brand collaborations. Of course, there's a significant reach on social media and even email to a certain extent. But destinations and tourism bureaus are really tasked. Yes, they're sales organizations, but they may be even more marketing organizations. So there is a way for destinations and sports commissions to understand the value, because inherently they're marketing their community, they're marketing the assets from a venue perspective that they have to bring in a World Breaking Classic or AAU Nationals or NCAA championships. So really they're marketing entities. So it's about closing that narrative gap. So it's not always about heads and beds and ROI from room nights. It can be, it's important, but also under consideration because of the nature of who these entities are with respect to marketing, it, these are marketing plays as well. So we've been able to close that gap through conversations. And a big part of why Tulsa came on board and why we landed in Tulsa twice is they understood it was not only about heads and beds. It was about marketing. It was about community impact. It was about leaning into a new program that can help them build relationships locally that they otherwise may not have. So there's a lot of value in there that is evergreen and extends beyond the life of one single event. So
Yeah.
for all those reasons, I mean, I couldn't be more excited about our place within the sports events and tourism space, and really looking forward to what lies ahead.
And for a destination that is interested in hosting a World Breaking Classic, what logistically do you need to have in order to bring your event to their city?
Logistics, the main, well, there's probably two main things. And most importantly, and it's not on the venue side, but most importantly, do you have some semblance of a breaking scene, some semblance of arts, hip hop uh, scene that would embrace this type of program? So that will make our lives a bit easier to produce, and it'll make our lives a heck of a lot easier in terms of marketing and getting attendees and getting people to come out and buy some tickets. Second would be the venue, right? So live music venues that are smaller, that have got built-in AV, maybe a stage. The competition's probably not happening on the stage, so the flat surface, open air, like not a fixed seating, where you can do the competition on the floor and create that intimate vibe around where people will be. There may be a few chairs, but it's going to be a lot of standing room only. A lot of people sitting on floors. There'll be some ciphering and practice in kind of adjacent corners of the room. Of course, for any of the partners that come on board, we want to have some activation space there, but it's an open, smaller live music venue, preferably hardwood. Doesn't need to be hardwood, but preferably hardwood. And again, the AV aesthetics that are there as well. Tulsa's a great example. Keene's Ballroom. I think Sports ETA was there, and for those that attended Sports ETA this past spring, one of the functions was at Keene's Ballroom, which is where our program was in 2024. Amazing space, and I think all the people that probably attended Sports ETA and got to see Canes for the first time would agree that it could be a great spot for a dance competition.
Yes, we were there and we had a great time, so I can second that. And so
Yep.
when you're evaluating host destinations for events, whether it's WBC or other projects, what factors stand out to you most?
It's different, right? So every event's
Yep.
different. So for breaking, it's it's a destination that grasps more than just the heads and beds narrative that plays into sports events and tourism. It's marketing ROI, it's an arts infrastructure, it's a dance community that will embrace the program. So it really is dependent, but um, I guess that ties into the LLC conversation that we were kind of touching on earlier. If
Yep.
the capacity to build a strong local organizing committee that supports us for World Breaking Classic is very important. Of course, financially for us, like there's not. It's been admittedly a bit of a challenge a couple of the last 4 years in closing some financial gaps. So that of course is a consideration with respect to complementary venue space, or if there's marketing budgets that can be leveraged for sponsorship as well. So that's a huge part of us being able to produce. Our production costs, our biggest expenses are of course the venue. We have to fly in staff from around the country, judges. So when you're doing an international qualifying breaking event, you want to have representation not only locally from judges and DJs and MCs, but you need national representation. So we need to fly in some staff. From a prize fund perspective, that's a pretty significant chunk as well. So to have some level of investment by destinations or sports commissions is important. It doesn't always have to be the CVB or sports commission. It could be a mix of CVB, sports commission, and maybe some local partners that get it. We're also working on brand partnerships from a national perspective with organizations like Red Bull and Monster and some others. But having some local buy-in is critically important for us to have success, to have a chance at success.
Totally. And your RFP from last year was one of the most popular on Playeasy of 2024. And so you've used Playeasy in your work. How has
Yep.
technology helped make the destination search and event planning process more efficient?
You really can go into any conversation, not cold, right? So cold calls are still a thing, whether you're walking into an office or making a phone call or even a cold email. I guess not technically, I guess they're still known as cold calls, but there's so much information at your fingertips, and that first and foremost allows me to shape an appropriate outreach, whether we're looking for a sponsor or whether we're looking for a venue, right? Or whether we're on the destination side of things. If you're pursuing a rights holder or an event, like there's no reason why you can't have as much information as you think you would need to feel comfortable going into a cold type call. So that's like just the information that's available if it's used properly. So social media, of course, can be cumbersome, and I don't even want to say it's oceans of content options that are out there. It's probably multiverses of content options that are out there right now that we're all dealing with.
Yeah,
But if you
definitely.
spend some time and are targeted with it, you can extrapolate some important information that will help you make and that will help shape your business decisions.
So we look ahead, what is next for the World Breaking Classic?
Yeah, we're coming to teams in October. We're very excited about that. I think we're past the point of being able to produce a qualifier in 25. We are targeting 2026 now, springtime 2026 for a USA qualifier. So we'll have an updated RFP for that out to the community soon. And then we've also touched base recently with World Breaking Classics headquarter office, and they do have some interest in exploring international options beyond Europe and beyond the Netherlands. And breaking, being born out of the hip hop culture in the United States back in the 1970s, it's only right that that world final at some point in time comes to the States. So we've already got kind of a short list of destinations that have already expressed interest. We've had a few initial phone calls, but there will be an RFP from the world final perspective as well for most likely 2027 and 2028. I should have that ready to share by the time teams rolls around as well. So exciting opportunities both within the States for the U.S. qualifier, but also a first time ever opportunity to host World Breaking Classic World Final right here in the U.S. too.
That's exciting. And we are partners of teams, and we will be there as well. So we're excited to see you there. And so to end with just some personal questions, you've been in the industry for nearly 2 decades. What has been the biggest lesson that you have learned?
Oof. Biggest lesson would be probably, oh man, that's a tough one.
It's the hard hitting ones. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean yeah, that's tough. Gosh, I guess always be willing to learn. You know, sometimes that can get lost because we're always so dang busy, and I'm guilty of it now, right? And trying to get my LLC plus 7 company to a more profitable point, so I can maybe take a step back and a break. So I feel like I'm always so busy that some of the focus on actually learning has subsided for me. So that's been a harsh reality. It's been difficult. Um, Obviously, your network is going to take you a lot farther than you could take yourself. So at a very early age, I would recommend finding somebody who you look up to that can help you build your network. And I think I had some of those people earlier in my career and probably didn't quite understand the value of those people to the fullest extent that I do now. But I think I've built a decent network, and obviously we've all got different talents, so we can all do things pretty well individually. But who in your network, who in your circle that you're surrounded with can help you get to that next level, can help you advance in your career, and not only your career, but as a human being, right? So it's all for me. It's about trying to blend it all together. So I'm at my happiest when career and personal life are all kind of progressing at the same rate and arcing, you know, at the same time. So it should be a good balance, and that it should feel organic and natural. And again, a commitment to learning and a commitment to surrounding yourself with good people, I think can help you succeed that way.
I know I put you on the spot, but that was a unbelievable answer. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to close this out, what are you most looking forward to the rest of 2025?
20, there's what we have 3 months left. About
Yeah.
there's a lot. Well, obviously getting World Breaking Classic, kind of getting that fire reintroduced to the sports event and tourism community. That's been a passion of mine. We're making a heck of a lot of headway back home on the Women's Baseball Museum front. That we made a huge announcement last week that the New York Mets ownership group donated a significant amount of money to that project. So we're making headway there. Seeing some old friends, obviously, at a place like Teams. Seeing old friends at NCAA symposium this past Monday was refreshing. It was a breath of fresh air. So that's exciting for me. It's something that you don't always get as a pretty small entrepreneurial program. Yeah, I'm just excited to see where the growth of what we're doing, not only with World Breaking Classic, but my company, where that's going to lead. And yeah, I mean, it's just going to be an exciting next few months and busy for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we are looking forward to seeing where you take this. And you know,
Yep.
it's conference season is always a busy time, but it definitely is refreshing to see faces outside of a Zoom or a
Yeah.
podcast episode. So we're looking forward to spending some time in person. And so for anyone who is looking to
Yeah.
get in touch, what is the best way of doing so?
Yeah. You could probably reach out via email. Well, plus7company.com is the website, but my email address is very simple, nick@plus7company.com, all spelled out. So if there's interest in World Breaking Classic, let me know. If there's interest in talking sports tourism or sports marketing, happy to connect. And really, yeah, I'm just trying to be as good a resource to some people in the industry that I've had many people that have been a great resource to me. So I'm just trying to maybe dedicate some more time into returning those favors.
Awesome. Well,
Yep.
Nick, this has been such a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. We'll have to,
Yep.
there's so much we could have covered, so we'll have to have
I
you back
know.
on again.
Yep.
But I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Again, appreciate the opportunity, and we'll look forward to seeing you here back at Teams.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Nick. Until next time. Bye, everyone.